I came home after 26 hours at the hospital saving lives. I was exhausted. The moment I stepped through the door, I heard laughter in my living room, laughter I didn't recognize. I walked slowly and saw them. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, was showing my house to a stranger, a buyer. She looked me straight in the eyes and said coldly, "You've already lived your life. Sell this house and split the money. You don't need it anymore." She forgot something important. She forgot that I built this house with my own hands 35 years ago. She forgot that she and my son lived here without paying a single dollar in rent. What I did next left her homeless, husbandless, and with an arrest warrant. And believe me when I tell you this, she deserved it. Let me tell you who I am. My name is Elisa Montero, and I'm 68 years old. I've been an architect for 39 years. I spent my entire career designing buildings, supervising construction sites, and teaching young architects how to read blueprints. I know how to build things that last. I know how to read foundations. And I know when something is about to collapse. I've been a widow for 8 years now. My husband, Fernando, died of pancreatic cancer. We were married for 42 years. He was my partner in everything, in life, in love, and in building this house. We bought this land together in 1998. It was empty, just dirt and wild grass. We couldn't afford to hire a full construction team, so we did most of the work ourselves. I designed every single room. I chose every piece of wood, every tile, every window frame. Fernando and I spent 3 years building this house with our own hands. 3 years of weekends, nights after work, and every vacation day we had saved. When Fernando got sick, we had to take out loans for his treatment. $280,000. The insurance covered some of it, but not enough. I sold our car. I took on extra projects. I worked triple shifts doing consulting work just to keep us afloat. Fernando didn't make it, but before he died, he made me promise something. He held my hand in that hospital bed and said, "Don't let anyone take this house from you. It's yours. We built it together, but it's in your name. Keep it that way." I promised him I would. Now let me tell you about my son. His name is Rodrigo. He's 43 years old. I love him. I will always love him. But somewhere along the way, I lost him. Not to death, but to something worse. Entitlement. Rodrigo was a good kid growing up. He was smart, hardworking, and kind. He had a good job at a logistics company. He was doing well, but 2 years ago, he got laid off. Budget cuts, they said. It happens. I told him he could come stay with me for a couple of months while he figured things out. He wasn't alone. He brought his wife, Vanessa. Vanessa is 34 years old. She doesn't work. She's been between jobs for as long as I've known her. She's always looking for the perfect opportunity, the perfect role, the perfect salary. But she never actually takes a job. She says she's building her personal brand on social media. She posts pictures of expensive clothes, fancy restaurants, and luxury vacations. I don't know where the money comes from, but I suspect it's not from her. When Rodrigo asked if they could stay with me, he said, "Just a couple of months, Mom. Just until I find something." I said yes. How could I not? He's my son. I thought it would be temporary. I thought he'd find a job, save some money, and move out. That was 2 years ago. 2 years. And in those 2 years, they haven't paid a single dollar in rent. Not one. They don't pay for water, electricity, gas, or internet. They don't contribute to groceries. They live here completely for free. At first, I didn't mind. Family helps family, right? That's what I was taught. That's what I believed. But things started to change. Slowly at first, then all at once. Vanessa started rearranging the furniture. She said the living room looked dated. She moved my favorite armchair, the one Fernando bought me for our 20th anniversary, into the garage. She said it didn't match her aesthetic. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was just furniture. Then she started redecorating. She bought new curtains, new throw pillows, new rugs. She didn't ask me. She just did it. When I asked where the money came from, she said Rodrigo had gotten a freelance gig. But I never saw any money. I never saw him working. And I certainly never saw them pay me back for anything. The worst part wasn't the redecorating. It was the way she treated me. She stopped calling me by my name. She called me mother-in-law or ma'am, never Elisa. She spoke to me like I was a stranger, like I was a tenant in my own house. She'd give me instructions. Don't leave your shoes by the door. Don't use the good towels. Don't cook during the day. I need the kitchen quiet. I started to feel like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. Rodrigo didn't say anything. He never defended me. He never told Vanessa to stop. He just stayed quiet. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me with this guilty expression, like he knew what was happening, but didn't have the courage to stop it. That hurt more than anything Vanessa did, because he knew, and he did nothing. The first real sign that something was deeply wrong came 3 months ago. I came home from a doctor's appointment and found yellow sticky notes all over the kitchen. They were on the refrigerator, on the cabinets, on the coffee maker, even on the dish soap. Each note said the same thing. Vanessa's, do not use. I stood there staring at those notes for a long time. My refrigerator, my cabinets, my dish soap, all marked as hers. I felt something crack inside me. Not anger, not yet. Just disbelief. I asked Rodrigo about it that night. He was sitting on the couch watching TV. I said, "What's with the notes in the kitchen?" He didn't even look at me. He just shrugged and said, "Vanessa wants to keep her things separate. She's very particular about her stuff." I said, "Rodrigo, this is my house. Everything in that kitchen is mine. I bought it." He finally looked at me then, and he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Mom, maybe you should start thinking about getting your own place. We're all adults here. Maybe it's time." I felt like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water over me. My own son. My own son was telling me to leave my house, the house I built, the house his father and I poured our lives into. I didn't respond. I just walked away. I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. That's when I realized something had changed. This wasn't temporary anymore. This wasn't just them staying with me for a little while. They were taking over, and I had let it happen. The yellow sticky notes spread like a disease. The next day, there were more. On the shampoo bottle in the bathroom, on the hand soap, on the towels. By the third day, Vanessa had put sticky notes on the toilet paper rolls, the silverware drawer, and even the salt and pepper shakers. Every single item in my house that she had touched or claimed as hers was now marked with a bright yellow note. I counted them one afternoon. 73. 73 sticky notes in my own house. I confronted her. I found her in the living room scrolling through her phone. I said, "Vanessa, this needs to stop. You can't put sticky notes on everything." She didn't even look up. She just said, "I'm protecting my things. I don't want any confusion about what belongs to who." I said, "Everything in this house belongs to me. I bought it. I own it." She finally looked at me then. She smiled. Not a warm smile. A cold, sharp smile. Like a shark that smells blood in the water. She said, "Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you invited us to stay. We live here too now." That word. Now. Like it was permanent. Like it was decided. I felt my blood turn to ice. I went to Rodrigo again. This time I was angrier. I said, "Your wife is putting sticky notes on toilet paper. This is insane. You need to talk to her." He sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. He said, "Mom, she's just trying to establish boundaries. It's healthy. Boundaries. In my house, between me and my things." I said, "Rodrigo, this is my house. I built it. Your father and I built it with our bare hands." He looked at me with this tired expression and said, "I live here too. Maybe it's time we all had equal say. Equal say. In the house I owned. The house I paid for. The house his father and I sweated and bled to build." I realized then that I wasn't dealing with temporary guests anymore. I was dealing with squatters. Squatters who thought they had rights. I started noticing other things. Small things at first, but they added up. Vanessa had started going through my mail. I'd come home and find envelopes opened, bills looked at, statements read. When I asked her about it, she said she was just trying to help organize. But I never asked for help. I never gave her permission. She also started inviting people over without telling me. Friends of hers I'd never met. They'd show up at 9 or 10 at night, stay until 2 or 3 in the morning, laughing and drinking in my living room. I had to get up at 6 for work. When I asked her to keep it down, she said, "This is Rodrigo's house too. We're allowed to have guests." Then there were the finances. I noticed charges on my credit card that I didn't recognize. Small ones at first. $20 here, $30 there. Coffee shops, online shopping, delivery services. When I asked Rodrigo about it, he said Vanessa must have used the card by mistake, but it kept happening. Every week, new charges. I changed the card. A month later, There were charges again. She'd somehow gotten the new number. But the worst moment came about 6 months into them living with me. Rodrigo came to me one evening and said he needed to talk. We sat down in the kitchen, and he said, "Mom, I need to borrow some money." I asked how much. He said, $450,000. I almost choked. $450,000. I said, "For what?" He explained that he and a friend wanted to start a business, an auto parts distribution company. They had a whole plan, investors lined up, contracts ready to sign. They just needed seed money. He said, "I'll pay you back in 2 years, with interest, I promise." I didn't want to do it. Every instinct in my body told me not to. But he's my son. And he looked so hopeful, so determined. I thought maybe this was what he needed to get back on his feet. So I said yes. I took out a loan against the house, $450,000. We signed a promissory note, notarized, legal. He promised to pay me back in 2 years with 6% interest. That was 2 years ago. I haven't seen a single cent. Not one payment, not even a partial payment. When I bring it up, he says the business didn't work out. The investors backed out. The partners stole money. There's always an excuse. Always a reason why he can't pay me back. And Vanessa? She acts like it never happened. Like I never gave them that money. A few weeks after the loan, Vanessa's parents came to visit. I didn't know they were coming. They just showed up one Saturday morning. Her father, Miguel, and her mother, Patricia. They were polite at first. We had coffee in the living room. But then Miguel started asking me questions. Personal questions. How old was I? Did I have a retirement plan? Was I still working? Did I have health problems? It felt less like small talk and more like an interrogation. Then Patricia said something that made my stomach turn. She said, "You know, Elisa, you're at a stage in life where you should be thinking about simplifying, downsizing. You don't need a big house like this anymore. Have you thought about moving into a senior living community?" I said, "I'm 68, not 90. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Miguel jumped in. He said, "Of course you are. But those places are nice. They have activities, nurses on staff, meal plans. It might be good for you." I realized what they were doing. They were planting seeds. They were trying to convince me to leave my own house. Vanessa must have put them up to it. I looked over at her, and she was smiling that same cold smile. I said, "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home." Patricia said, "Well, just think about it. You could sell this place, split the money with Rodrigo, and use your share to pay for a nice assisted living facility. They're only about $8,000 a month. If you sold your car, you could cover the first few months while the house sale goes through. Sell my car. Sell my house. Give the money to Rodrigo and Vanessa. Move into a nursing home." That was their plan. I could see it so clearly now. They weren't just staying with me, they were pushing me out. I said very calmly, "This house is not for sale, and I'm not moving anywhere." Miguel's smile faded. He said, "Well, it's your decision. But you should think about what's best for everyone." Everyone. Not me. Everyone. Meaning them. After they left, I couldn't stop thinking about what Patricia had said. Split the money with Rodrigo. Why would I split the money with Rodrigo? This was my house. My name was on the deed, not his. But the way she said it, so casually, like it was obvious, like it was already decided, it made me wonder. Had Rodrigo told them something different? Did he tell them the house was his? Or that it would be his? I started paying closer attention. I listened to conversations. I watched what they did when they thought I wasn't looking. One evening, I came home early from a dentist appointment. I heard voices in the kitchen. I walked quietly down the hall and stopped just outside the door. Vanessa was talking to Rodrigo. She said, "When we sell the house, we can get at least $3 million for it. This neighborhood's hot right now. We give her $1 million, keep 2 for us. That's more than enough for her to live comfortably in one of those senior places." Rodrigo said, "I don't know. She's not going to want to sell." Vanessa laughed. A sharp, cruel laugh. She said, "She will if we make her uncomfortable enough. Trust me, a few more months of this, and she'll be begging to leave. Old people want peace and quiet. We just need to make sure she doesn't get any." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. They were planning this. They had a strategy. They were actively trying to push me out of my own home so they could sell it and take the money. My house, the house Fernando and I built, the house we poured our hearts into. They wanted to take it from me and throw me into a nursing home. I stood there in the hallway with my hand over my mouth, trying not to make a sound. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. I backed away slowly, grabbed my purse, and left the house. I got in my car and just drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to move. I ended up at a park near the hospital where I used to work. I sat on a bench and stared at the trees. I thought about Fernando. I thought about how hard we worked to build that house. I thought about the promise I made to him. Don't let anyone take this house from you. I had failed. I had let them in, and now they were taking everything. But then I thought about something else. Something Fernando used to say when we were building the house. He'd say, "Foundations don't lie. If the foundation is strong, the house will stand. If it's weak, everything collapses." I realized something sitting on that bench. I had the foundation. The house was in my name. The deed was in my name. The loan, the mortgage, the property taxes, all in my name. Rodrigo had no legal claim to it. None. And I had a notarized promissory note for $450,000 that he owed me. I wasn't powerless. I had been acting like a guest in my own home, but I wasn't. I was the owner. And it was time I started acting like it. I drove back home. I walked in the front door, and Vanessa was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled amazing. One of my recipes, braised short ribs. The smell filled the entire house. I was starving. I hadn't eaten all day. I walked into the kitchen and said, "That smells wonderful." Vanessa didn't even turn around. She said, "It's not for you. Rodrigo's parents are coming over for dinner." I said, "Rodrigo's parents? You mean my family?" She finally turned around and looked at me with that cold, dead smile. She said, "You weren't invited." I felt something inside me harden. Not break, harden. Like molten steel cooling into something unbreakable. I said, "This is my house. I don't need an invitation." She shrugged and turned back to the stove. She said, "Suit yourself, but there's not enough food for you. Maybe order something." I walked past her, grabbed my phone, and went to my room. I locked the door, and I started making plans. The next morning, I waited until they both left the house. Vanessa had a hair appointment. Rodrigo said he had a meeting with a potential client. I didn't believe him, but I didn't care. I needed them gone. As soon as I heard Rodrigo's car pull out of the driveway, I went to their bedroom. I'd never gone through their things before. It felt wrong, like a violation of privacy, but they'd violated my entire life. They'd gone through my mail, used my credit cards, planned to steal my house. I didn't owe them privacy anymore. I opened the door and stepped inside. Their room was a mess, clothes everywhere, empty coffee cups on the nightstand, the bed unmade. I started with the dresser. I opened each drawer carefully, looking for anything that might tell me what they were really planning. I found receipts, lots of them. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, spa treatments, thousands of dollars spent in the last few months. None of it from Rodrigo's supposed freelance work. I didn't know where the money was coming from, but it clearly wasn't from any job. Then I moved to the closet. I pushed aside hanging clothes and found a cardboard box on the top shelf. I pulled it down and opened it. Inside were documents, bank statements, credit card bills, and something else. A folder. I opened it, and my heart stopped. Inside the folder was a real estate appraisal for my house, dated 3 months ago. The estimated value, $3,200,000. Someone had written notes in the margins. Split 60-40, one arrow pointing to Elisa, $1,280,000. Another arrow pointing to R and V, $1,920,000. They'd had the house appraised. They'd already divided up the money. They were just waiting for me to agree to sell. I felt my hands start to shake. Not from fear, from rage. Pure, cold rage. I kept looking through the folder. Behind the appraisal was a brochure. Sunset Meadows Senior Living Community. Someone had circled the monthly cost, $8,400. On the back, in Vanessa's handwriting, it said, "Sell her car. First 3 months covered." They had a plan. A detailed, calculated plan. They were going to convince me to sell my house, take most of the money, and dump me in a nursing home. And they expected me to just go along with it. They thought I was weak. They thought I was old and tired and too broken to fight back. But they forgot something. I'm an architect. I built this house. I know every beam, every pipe, every wire. I know where the foundation is strongest and where the cracks are. And I know how to read blueprints, including legal ones. I kept digging through the box. At the very bottom, underneath all the other papers, I found a manila envelope. It was thick, heavy. I opened it and pulled out the contents. And that's when I found it. The deed to the house. My name. Elisa Montero. Not Rodrigo's name. Not Vanessa's name. Mine. The house was 100% mine. Legally. Officially. Undeniably mine. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. For months, I'd been walking around feeling like maybe I didn't have a right to be upset. Like maybe they did have some claim to the house because Rodrigo was my son. But seeing that deed, seeing my name in black and white, it was like someone had turned on a light in a dark room. This was my house. They had no legal right to it. None. I kept looking through the envelope. Behind the deed was another document. The promissory note. $450,000, signed by Rodrigo. Notarized. Dated 2 years ago. 6% annual interest. I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator. $450,000 at 6% interest for 2 years. That came to $504,000. He owed me $504,000. And he hadn't paid a single cent. But there was more. At the very bottom of the envelope, I found something that made my blood run cold. Printed screenshots of text messages between Vanessa and Rodrigo. I started reading. Vanessa, your mom's not going to sell willingly. We need a different approach. Rodrigo, like what? Vanessa, make her uncomfortable. Make her want to leave. She's old. She wants peace and quiet. We take that away. Rodrigo, I don't know. That feels cruel. Vanessa, it's not cruel. It's strategic. Besides, she's going to end up in a home eventually anyway. We're just speeding up the timeline, and we're making sure we get what we deserve. Rodrigo, what we deserve? Vanessa, yes, you're her only son. That house should be yours. She's being selfish by holding on to it. She doesn't need all that space. Rodrigo, I guess you're right. Vanessa, I know I'm right. Look, once we sell the house, we can finally start our lives. We can buy our own place. Somewhere modern. Somewhere that's actually ours. No more living with your mom. No more pretending to be grateful. Rodrigo, how much do you think we can get for it? Vanessa, at least $3 million. We give her $1 million. That's more than enough for her to live comfortably in assisted living. We keep $2 million. We pay off our debts, buy a condo, and still have money left over. Rodrigo, she's not going to agree to that. Vanessa, then we make her life here so miserable that she has no choice. Trust me, a few more months and she'll be begging us to sell. The messages were dated 4 months ago. 4 months. That's when the sticky notes started. That's when Vanessa's attitude changed. That's when Rodrigo stopped defending me. It wasn't gradual. It wasn't accidental. It was planned. They'd sat down, discussed it, and decided to psychologically torture me until I gave up my home. I sat down on the edge of their bed, staring at the phone in my hand. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My son, my own son, he'd agreed to this. He'd let his wife convince him to push his own mother out of her home so they could take the money. He didn't even need the money. They were spending thousands of dollars on designer clothes and fancy dinners. They just wanted more. I thought about all the years I'd worked, all the sacrifices I'd made, the triple shifts to pay for his asthma treatments when he was 11, the money I'd given him for college, the $280,000 I'd borrowed to save Fernando's life, the $450,000 I'd loaned Rodrigo for his business. None of it mattered. To him, I was just an obstacle, an old woman standing between him and a big payday. I carefully took pictures of everything. The deed, the promissory note, the text messages, the appraisal, the nursing home brochure, every single page. I uploaded them to the cloud. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it. I closed the box, put it back on the shelf, and walked out of the room. I went to my bedroom and sat down at my desk. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. The first call was to my niece, Mariana. She's a family law attorney. I told her everything. She listened quietly, and when I finished, she said, "Aunt Elisa, you have a very strong case. They have no legal claim to your house, and that promissory note is enforceable. You can take him to court." I said, "I don't want to take him to court. I want them out of my house." She said, "Then we start with an eviction notice. I'll draft it today. They'll have 30 days to vacate." The second call was to a locksmith. I scheduled him to come the day after the eviction notice was served. New locks on every door, new garage door code, new security system. They weren't going to be able to walk back in. The third call was to my bank. I froze Rodrigo's access to my accounts. He'd been an authorized user for years, left over from when he was younger and needed emergency access. I removed him immediately. By the time I finished making calls, it was almost noon. I heard the front door open. They were home. I walked out of my bedroom and found them in the kitchen. Vanessa was unpacking takeout bags. Rodrigo was grabbing plates. They looked so casual, so comfortable, like they owned the place. I walked past them without saying a word. I grabbed a bottle of water from the refrigerator, one that didn't have a yellow sticky note on it. Vanessa looked at me and said, "That's mine." I took a long drink, looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Actually, everything in this house is mine. Don't forget that." She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already walking away. I heard Rodrigo say, "What was that about?" I didn't stick around to hear her answer. I went back to my room and locked the door. I sat on my bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, everything was going to change. Tomorrow, I was going to remind them that this was my house, my life, my rules. And if they didn't like it, they could leave. The next morning, I got up early. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table waiting. At 8 o'clock sharp, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there stood a process server. He was holding a large manila envelope. He asked, "Rodrigo Montero?" I said, "He's my son. I'll make sure he gets this." The man nodded, handed me the envelope, and left. I set the envelope on the kitchen counter, right where Rodrigo would see it when he came downstairs. Then I went back to my coffee. I heard footsteps about 20 minutes later. Rodrigo walked into the kitchen, still half asleep, wearing pajama pants and an old t-shirt. He went straight for the coffee maker, didn't even look at me. Then he saw the envelope. He picked it up. His name was on the front in big, bold letters. He looked at me. "What's this?" I took a sip of my coffee. "Open it." He tore open the envelope and pulled out the papers inside. I watched his face as he read. First confusion, then disbelief, then panic. His eyes went wide. He looked up at me. "This is an eviction notice." I nodded. "Yes, it is." "You're evicting us?" "I am." "Mom?" "What are you talking about? We live here. This is our home." I set my coffee cup down slowly. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I said very calmly, "This is my home. My name is on the deed, not yours. You've lived here rent-free for 2 years. You haven't contributed a single dollar, and now I'm asking you to leave. You have 30 days. Vanessa appeared in the doorway. She must have heard us talking. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair perfectly styled even first thing in the morning. She looked at the papers in Rodrigo's hands. "What's going on?" Rodrigo stammered. "She's evicting us." Vanessa's face went white, then red, then white again. She turned to me. "You can't do that." I smiled. Not a warm smile, a cold, sharp smile. The same smile she'd given me so many times. "Actually, I can. This is my house. I own it, and I want you out." Vanessa laughed. A high-pitched, nervous laugh. "You're being ridiculous." "Rodrigo, tell her she's being ridiculous." Rodrigo just stood there, frozen, staring at the papers. Vanessa turned back to me. "You can't just kick us out. We have rights. We've been living here for 2 years. That makes us tenants. You can't evict tenants without cause." I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken. I turned the screen to face her. "Is this cause enough? Text messages between you and Rodrigo. Planning to make my life miserable so I'd sell my house. Planning to take $2 million and leave me with $1 million to pay for a nursing home I don't need." Vanessa's mouth opened. No sound came out. I swiped to the next photo. "Here's the real estate appraisal you had done. Without my knowledge or permission, $3,200,000. You'd already divided up the money before even asking me." Another swipe. "Here's the brochure for Sunset Meadows, with your handwriting on it. Sell her car. First 3 months covered. You were planning to sell my car to pay for a nursing home I never agreed to." Rodrigo looked like he was going to be sick. "Mom, I can explain." "Can you?" I stood up. I walked over to him. I looked him in the eyes. "Explain to me how you thought it was okay to plot against your own mother. Explain to me how you thought it was okay to psychologically torture me in the house I built. Explain to me how you forgot that I gave you $450,000 2 years ago and you haven't paid back a single cent. He flinched. The business didn't work out. I told you that. The business didn't work out. But somehow you and Vanessa have been spending thousands of dollars on designer clothes, fancy dinners, and spa treatments. Where did that money come from, Rodrigo? He didn't answer. I pulled out another piece of paper from my pocket. The promissory note. I held it up. This is a legally binding contract. You owe me $504,000, principal plus interest. I want it paid in full within 30 days. If you don't pay, I will take you to court, and I will win. Vanessa found her voice. You can't do this. We'll fight it. We'll get a lawyer. I smiled again. Go ahead. I have a lawyer too. My niece, Mariana. She specializes in family law. She's already reviewed everything. You have no case. None. You're squatters, and squatters don't have rights. Rodrigo dropped the papers. They scattered on the floor. He ran his hands through his hair. Mom, please. We don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought about that before you tried to steal my house. Vanessa stepped forward. Her face was twisted with rage. You're a bitter old woman. That's what you are. You can't stand the fact that we're young and have our whole lives ahead of us, and you're just wasting away in this house, alone. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just stared at her. Get out of my kitchen. This is Rodrigo's house too. No, it's not. And you have 29 days left to pack your things and leave. If you're still here on day 31, the police will remove you. And trust me, I will call them. Vanessa looked at Rodrigo. Say something. Defend me. But Rodrigo didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at the floor. Vanessa grabbed her phone off the counter and stormed out of the kitchen. I heard the bedroom door slam. Rodrigo and I stood there in silence for a long moment. Finally, he looked up at me. His eyes were red. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Sorry doesn't fix this. I know. Vanessa said it made sense. She said you didn't need this big house anymore. She said we could all be happier if we just made a change. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe there was an easy solution. I didn't want to keep struggling. So you decided to take my house instead of getting a job. He looked down again. I know how it sounds. Do you? Do you know how it feels to have your own son plot against you? To treat you like an obstacle instead of a person? He didn't answer. I picked up the eviction notice from the floor and handed it back to him. You have 30 days. Use them wisely. I walked out of the kitchen and went to my room. I closed the door and sat on the edge of my bed. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. I'd done it. I'd stood up to them. I'd drawn the line. And it felt good. Terrifying, but good. Over the next few days, the house was tense. Rodrigo and Vanessa barely spoke to me. They stayed in their room most of the time. I heard them arguing late at night. Vanessa's voice was always louder, always angrier. Rodrigo's voice was quiet, defeated. I didn't care. They'd made their choices. Now they had to live with the consequences. On day 5, I got a call from Mariana. She said, Auntie Lisa, I have some news. Rodrigo tried to hire a lawyer to fight the eviction, but no one will take his case. He doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. The eviction is going to proceed as planned. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Thank you, Mariana. There's more. I filed a civil suit for the unpaid loan. $504,000 plus legal fees. The court date is set for 6 weeks from now. If he doesn't pay before then, we'll get a judgment against him. What does that mean? It means the court will order him to pay. If he can't, they'll garnish his wages, seize his assets, or both. He won't be able to avoid this. I thanked her again and hung up. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. I was in control of my life again. My house, my money, my decisions. On day 10, Vanessa tried one last time. She knocked on my bedroom door. I opened it. She was standing there with red, puffy eyes. She'd been crying. She said, Elisa, please, can we talk? I crossed my arms. What do you want? I want to apologize. I was wrong. I let my ambition cloud my judgment. I pushed Rodrigo into things he shouldn't have done. I take full responsibility. I stared at her. Do you think an apology erases what you did? No, but I'm hoping it's a start. I'm hoping we can work something out. Work something out. Yes, maybe we can stay a little longer, just until we find a place, and we'll pay you rent, I promise. With what money? You don't have jobs. You've been living off my credit cards and spending money I don't know where it comes from. She looked down. I have some money saved. Then use it to find an apartment. Please, Elisa, I know I hurt you, but I'm begging you. Give us another chance. I felt nothing. No anger, no pity. Just cold, hard resolve. You had your chance. You had 2 years of chances. You used every single one to make my life worse. Now you're out of chances. You have 20 days left. I suggest you start packing. I closed the door in her face. On day 15, I came home to find the house completely silent. No TV, no music, no voices. I walked upstairs and knocked on their door. No answer. I opened it. The room was empty. The closet was open, half the clothes gone. The dresser drawers were pulled out, also half empty. They'd left, without saying a word, without saying goodbye. I walked around the room, looking at what they'd left behind. It was mostly junk, old magazines, broken electronics, empty boxes. I called Mariana. They're gone. Gone? As in moved out? Yes, they took some of their stuff and left the rest. Good. That makes things easier. I'll update the eviction case to reflect that they vacated voluntarily. As for the loan, the case is still active. They still owe you the money. Do you think I'll ever see it? Mariana paused. Honestly, probably not all of it, but we'll get a judgment. And that judgment will follow him for the rest of his life. He won't be able to buy a house, get a decent loan, or even rent an apartment without that judgment showing up. It'll haunt him. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Good. That night, I hired a cleaning crew to come clear out their room. They took everything to the dump. Clothes, furniture, boxes, all of it. Gone. Then I had the locksmith come change all the locks. New deadbolts, new door handles, new garage code, new security system with cameras. I wasn't taking any chances. The next day, I went to the paint store and bought new paint. A soft, warm beige. I repainted their room myself. It took me 3 days, but I didn't care. I needed to erase them from this house. I needed to make it mine again. When I finished, I stood in the doorway and looked at the empty, freshly painted room. It looked clean, new, like nothing bad had ever happened there. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. But I wasn't done yet. There was still the matter of the money, and the matter of making sure Rodrigo understood exactly what he'd lost. 2 weeks after they left, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Rodrigo. Not an email, not a text, a handwritten letter. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something stopped me. Maybe curiosity, maybe hope that he'd finally understood what he'd done. I opened it. The letter was 3 pages long. His handwriting was messy, like he'd written it in a hurry, or while crying. It started with an apology. Mom, I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I regret everything. He went on to explain that Vanessa had left him. They'd gotten into a huge fight after they moved out. She blamed him for losing the house. She said he was weak, that he should have fought harder, that he'd ruined everything. She packed her bags and moved in with her parents. She filed for divorce 2 days later. He wrote that he was living in a motel, a cheap one on the edge of town, $60 a night. He'd gotten a job at a warehouse loading trucks. It paid $14 an hour. He was working 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week. He was trying to save money, trying to figure out how to pay me back. He said he'd spoken to a lawyer about the judgment. The lawyer told him it was airtight. He was going to lose. The best he could do was set up a payment plan. He asked if I'd be willing to accept $500 a month until the debt was paid off. At that rate, it would take him 84 years to pay me back. He knew that was ridiculous, but it was all he could afford. At the end of the letter, he wrote something that made me stop breathing. He said, I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive myself, but I want you to know that I remember. I remember when I was 11 and I couldn't breathe. I remember you rushing me to the hospital. I remember waking up after the surgery and seeing you sitting by my bed. You hadn't slept. You hadn't eaten. You just sat there holding my hand. You told me everything was going to be okay, and it was, because of you. You saved my life, Mom, and I repaid you by trying to steal your home. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway, because you're the only family I have left, and I don't want to lose you forever. I folded the letter and set it on the table. I stared at it for a long time. I felt a lot of things. Anger, sadness, pity, but mostly I felt tired. Tired of being angry, tired of being hurt, tired of carrying this weight. I didn't respond to the letter. Not right away. I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what I wanted. Did I want him in my life? Did I want to forgive him? Did I even know what forgiveness looked like? 3 weeks later, the court date arrived. I went with Mariana. We sat in the courtroom and waited. Rodrigo showed up 10 minutes late. He was wearing a cheap suit that didn't fit right. His hair was too long. He looked exhausted. He sat on the other side of the room and didn't look at me. The judge called the case. Mariana presented the promissory note, the text messages, the appraisal, everything. Rodrigo's lawyer, a young man who looked fresh out of law school, tried to argue that Rodrigo had been under financial duress when he signed the note. The judge wasn't impressed. She looked at Rodrigo and said, "Mr. Montero, did you sign this promissory note willingly?" Rodrigo nodded. "Yes, Your Honor," the judge said. "And did your mother loan you $450,000? Rodrigo nodded again. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge looked at the paperwork. "And you haven't made a single payment in 2 years?" Rodrigo's voice was barely a whisper. "No, Your Honor." The judge ruled in my favor. $504,000 plus court costs and legal fees. Total, $519,000. She asked Rodrigo how he planned to pay. He said he could afford $500 a month. The judge did the math in her head. She looked at him like he was insane. "That's 86 years, Mr. Montero." Rodrigo just nodded. The judge sighed. She set up a payment plan. $500 a month. If he missed a single payment, the full amount would be due immediately, and she'd authorize wage garnishment. After the hearing, I walked out of the courtroom. Rodrigo was standing in the hallway. He looked at me. I stopped. We stood there for a moment, just staring at each other. Finally, he said, "I meant what I wrote in the letter." I nodded. "I know," he said. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I'm going to try to make this right, even if it takes the rest of my life." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I said, "Rodrigo, I spent 68 years learning something important. Love doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Dignity has a price, and that price is self-respect. You forgot that. You thought because I was your mother, I'd let you take whatever you wanted. But I'm not just your mother, I'm a person. I built that house with my own hands. I worked triple shifts to save your life when you were 11. I gave you $450,000 when you needed it. And you thanked me by trying to steal everything I had left. That's not love, Rodrigo. That's betrayal." He looked down. Tears were streaming down his face. "I know. I'm glad you know. Because now you get to live with that knowledge. Every month when you make that payment, you're going to remember what you did. You're going to remember that you tried to destroy the person who loved you most. And maybe, if you're lucky, that memory will make you a better person." He wiped his eyes. "Will you ever forgive me?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. And then I said, "I don't know. Maybe, someday, but not today. Today, you need to leave. You need to go figure out who you are without Vanessa, without me, without anyone telling you what to do. You need to figure out if you're the kind of person who takes responsibility or the kind of person who blames everyone else. And when you figure that out, maybe we can talk." He nodded. He turned and walked away. I watched him go. I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it, a tiny crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. I drove home. I walked into my house. My house. It was quiet, peaceful. The yellow sticky notes were gone. The tension was gone. It was just me and the walls I'd built and the memories I'd made. I walked through every room, touching the things Fernando and I had chosen together. The wooden beams, the tile floors, the bay window in the living room. Every piece of this house was a piece of us, and no one was ever going to take that away from me again. I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the back porch. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink and purple. It was beautiful. I thought about Fernando. I thought about what he'd said in the hospital. "Don't let anyone take this house from you." I'd kept that promise. It hadn't been easy. It had been painful and messy and hard, but I'd done it. I'd protected what was mine. I'd stood up for myself. I'd drawn a line and refused to let anyone cross it. I thought about Rodrigo. I didn't know if he'd change. I didn't know if he'd ever truly understand what he'd done, but that wasn't my responsibility anymore. My responsibility was to myself, to my peace, to my home, and I'd fulfilled that responsibility. A few months later, I got the first payment, $500, deposited directly into my account, on time. I didn't call him. I didn't thank him. I just noted the payment and moved on. The next month, another $500. And the month after that, he was keeping his word. For now, I started making changes to the house. Small things at first. I bought new furniture for the living room, a new couch, a new coffee table. I repainted the kitchen, a soft yellow, cheerful, bright. I planted flowers in the garden, roses and lavender and daisies, things Fernando would have loved. I started inviting friends over, people I'd lost touch with during the 2 years Rodrigo and Vanessa had lived with me. I hosted dinners, game nights, book clubs. I filled the house with laughter and warmth and life. One evening, about 6 months after the court hearing, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? A woman's voice. Mrs. Montero? I said. Yes, this is she. The woman said, my name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm a therapist. Your son Rodrigo has been seeing me for the past 3 months. He asked me to call you. He wanted you to know that he's working on himself. He's in therapy. He's attending support groups. He's trying to become a better person. He's not asking for anything from you. He just wanted you to know. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, thank you for letting me know. Doctor, Chen said, he loves you very much, Mrs. Montero. He knows he hurt you, and he's genuinely trying to change. I can't promise he'll succeed, but I can tell you he's putting in the work. I thanked her again and hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Part of me wanted to call him, to tell him I was proud of him for getting help, but another part of me wasn't ready. I'd spent so long being hurt, so long being angry. I needed more time, and that was okay. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a process, a long, slow, painful process. And I was just at the beginning of it. A year after the eviction, I decided to do something I'd been thinking about for a while. I took out the deed to the house and went to see a lawyer. Not Mariana, a different lawyer who specialized in estate planning. I told him I wanted to set up a trust. I wanted the house to stay in my name as long as I was alive. But when I died, I wanted it to go to charity, a women's shelter, a place that helped women who'd been abused or abandoned or betrayed, women who needed a safe place to rebuild their lives. The lawyer helped me draw up the paperwork. I signed it, notarized it, made it legal and binding. Rodrigo would not inherit this house, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I wanted to protect it. This house was more than bricks and wood. It was a symbol of strength and resilience and survival, and it deserved to go to people who understood that. I told Mariana about the trust. She asked if I was sure. I said, absolutely. She asked if I was going to tell Rodrigo. I thought about it. Then I said, no, not yet. Maybe someday. But for now, it's my decision, and I'm at peace with it. Life went on. I kept working. I took on new projects. I mentored young architects. I traveled. I went to Italy, to Greece, to places Fernando and I had always talked about visiting but never had the chance. I took pictures. I ate good food. I made memories. I lived. Rodrigo kept making his payments, $500 every month, like clockwork. On the 18-month mark, I got another letter from him. It was shorter this time, just 1 page. He wrote that he'd finished therapy, that he'd learned a lot about himself, that he understood now why he'd made the choices he did. He said he wasn't making excuses. He knew what he'd done was wrong, but he wanted me to know that he was different now. He'd gotten a promotion at work. He was managing a team. He'd moved out of the motel and into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was his. He was building a life, a real life, without Vanessa, without anyone else's influence, just him. He ended the letter by saying, I hope one day you'll let me show you the person I've become, not because I want anything from you, but because I want you to be proud of me again. I miss you. Mom, I love you. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer with the first one. I still wasn't ready to respond, but I kept them, because maybe someday I would be. 2 years after the eviction, I was sitting on my back porch again. Same spot, same view. The sun was setting. I was drinking tea. My phone rang. It was Rodrigo. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I answered. Hello? His voice was quiet, nervous. Mom, it's me. I said, I know. There was a long pause. Then he said, I don't want anything. I just wanted to hear your voice. I wanted to tell you that I made my 24th payment today. I haven't missed a single one. And I won't. I promise. I said, I know. I've been keeping track. Another pause. Then he said, how are you? I looked out at the garden, at the roses Fernando and I planted together, at the house we built, at the life I'd reclaimed. And I said, I'm good, Rodrigo. I'm really good. We talked for 20 minutes, not about the past, not about the house or the money or the betrayal, just small talk. He told me about his job, his apartment, his therapy. I told him about my travels, my work, my friends. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like it used to be, but it was something. A start, a tiny, fragile bridge between us. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time. I thought about everything that had happened, the pain, the anger, the betrayal, the fight, the victory, and I realized something. I'd won. Not just the legal battle, not just the house. I'd won myself back. I'd reclaimed my dignity, my power, my life, and that was worth more than any house, more than any amount of money. That was everything. I don't know if Rodrigo and I will ever have the relationship we used to have. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I know this. I'm okay either way, because I learned something important through all of this. You can love someone and still set boundaries. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. And you can let go of the past without letting go of who you are. This house will always be mine. These walls hold my story, my strength, my survival. And when I'm gone, they'll hold the stories of other women who need a safe place to rebuild. Women who've been betrayed, women who've been told they're too old, too weak, too broken to fight back. This house will tell them they're wrong. It will tell them they're strong, that they matter, that they deserve dignity and respect and a place to call home. And that's the legacy I want to leave behind. Not money, not property, but proof that you can be knocked down and still get back up, that you can be betrayed and still survive, that you can be 68 years old and still have the strength to fight for what's yours. I learned something else too. Revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It's about rebuilding yourself. It's about taking back your power. It's about refusing to be a victim. That's what I did, and that's what I'll keep doing, every single day, for the rest of my life. So if you're out there, listening to this, and you're going through something similar, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not too old. You are not too tired. You have more strength than you know, and you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone take what's yours. Stand up, fight back, reclaim your life, because at the end of the day, the only person who can save you is you, and you're stronger than you think.